Hello, the name of this video is Charcuterie Shapes, and I am back with my charcuterie board. I've got bread, salami, and figs that I've cut into various shapes, and I'm going to draw these, but your perspective is going to be different than mine. So, for example, I'm seeing sort of the side angle of this piece of salami that's got this nice ellipse shape. And in last week's lesson called Slices, I did one continuous line to draw the whole composition, which I think is kind of challenging. So I'm going to do it a little differently this time. I'm going to block out my shapes very loosely, and then I'm going to go over with my continuous line and some values. So I think this way is going to be easier because I can set up my composition. Like I'm going to go, okay, salami is going to be over here, fig, piece of bread, and then the other stuff down here. So again, I'm tracing around my shapes like I like to do in the air. Right now, this is going to be extremely loose. Got the piece of bread over here with the other piece of bread and the fig. Okay, so there's my basic setup. I can refine it a little bit if I want. Trying to get in that ellipse shape on the salami. It's a cylinder, really. And then here comes the bread, oval with a flat bottom. Another slice. Okay, there's my setup. Now I'm going to go over in charcoal pencil, and I'm going to go from here, one continuous line, trying to capture all the shapes, doing a contour outline using a charcoal pencil so that you can see it. Focused on that curvature. Okay, and then I'm going to swing down to this big shape. Again, just focusing on the outer contour. Swing up to this edge of this slice of bread. And then I'm varying my line quality, more pressure, less pressure, depending on like certain areas of this bread have a crisper, sharper edge. I'm going to swing over to the fig here. And when I'm going between objects, I tend to make my line lighter, but I'm doing that. I want to keep the flow going. And now I'm going to come all the way over here. There's a little bit of the outer shape of that bread right there. Okay, so now I've got all my contours in. Now I've got different things I can do. I find the bread really interesting because it's got these little holes, these little pockets. So I can put some of that, those little details in. In the fig, there's just very light area. Maybe I'll shade that a little bit. And that's where some of the seeds are. Would have been good if I had my blending stump, but here we are. I'm going to use my finger. And the figs, they're not super strong, but you can sort of see these little striations going on in there. So I'm going to put those in. I'm going to shade more on the side of my bread there. A little bit of shadow here. More shading over here. Okay, and most of the salami, what I'm seeing, most of it is in shadow on this edge, getting a little lighter towards the front. We'll be working on gradation at some point, value gradation, that is. And then there's kind of double shadows going on from what I see. So I'm putting in the shadows here, and they seem to have a little bit of a shape, darker. So I just made that sort of ellipse shape, darker towards the base of the fig, and then kind of fanning out. This one's really nice down here. I'm seeing a little bit of a shadow of the actual stem shape. I'm using the side of my pencil. And the shadows below the shape, I'm noticing really kind of make it feel anchored to the ground. I mean, I can shade in the object too, but I'm noticing the actual shadow of the surface it's sitting on helps it feel anchored. It's a little confusing, that shadow there. Okay. Yeah, and then I can come in my objects, same thing, start shadowing them. I'm just giving a light suggestion. Okay, and I could just keep going with this. This one's a little bit harder to shadow because it's such a, there's not a lot of sense of depth on it. I'm just seeing kind of the rear end, the bottom of that fig. So a little bit harder to make it look round, except for when these curve lines meet the edge. They curve a little bit. Okay, so I could keep going with that, shading the shadows underneath the objects and the shading on the objects themselves. And then if I want to come in and erase some of these cross contour lines, that's usually when I bring my eraser in. At some point, you may end up skipping those cross contour lines. I just like to keep the flow of my drawing going. Some of the lines I like, but that's just a personal preference. And that is it for drawing charcuterie shapes, beginning with shape, continuous line, drawing with a charcoal pencil, and then adding some value and shading. And when you're done, you can enjoy your charcuterie snack.